Welcome to American Press Productions. This is today's top story. The tiny country of Brunei is making headlines in America. The nation is only slightly larger than Delaware and home to only just over 400,000 people. The government has a constitution and a parliamentary system, but the last election was held in 1962. The government is run by its sultan, its official head of state, who has full executive authority and who serves as the state's prime minister, finance minister, and defense minister. As a former territory of the British Empire, its legal system is based on the English common law, but is superseded when relevant by Islamic Sharia law. Recently, the sultan has decided to implement more of Sharia law in Brunei, such as those who are convicted of stealing could be sentenced with having their right hand chopped off. If they offend a second time, they may lose a left foot. The death penalty will be issued to those who practice certain kinds of black magic, and those found guilty of adultery and sodomy will be stoned to death. It is that last part concerning sodomy that is making headlines in the US. First, it was George Clooney, then Ellen DeGeneres and Billie Jean King, followed by others who have used their celebrity to publicly speak out against the part of Sharia law being implemented in Brunei that would sentence those found guilty of sodomy to death by stoning. Now, this isn't to come out in support of Sharia law nor stoning those guilty of sodomy, but to ask the question of why public figures such as George Clooney feel it appropriate to criticize the way a people or nation choose to live their lives in a foreign country. The most obvious retort to that question would be to point out that they will be killing homosexuals. But these celebrities aren't speaking out against killing adulterers, practitioners of black magic, nor maiming thieves. Because it's not about unjust death sentences nor extreme corporal punishment. We are only hearing about Sharia law in Brunei because the government is now officially targeting homosexuals. And that brings us closer to the real issue. People like Clooney and DeGeneres practice a morality unto themselves, a symptom of the identity politics that is fracturing America and will inevitably collapse in on itself. Two of the biggest issues people on the left champion are LGBT rights and support of Muslims worldwide, but especially those who immigrate to the West. The blind spot inherent in having a morality unto yourself is that you often fail to take into account the morality and values held by others, believing they hold the same views as your own. So while someone like Clooney would endlessly preach tolerance for others, he is likely incapable of understanding that some of those others hold fast to quite intolerant views relative to his. But to these others, such as Muslims, it's not intolerance in their eyes, it's simply their culture, their way of life. Recently in England, in Birmingham, a school district of almost entirely Muslims demonstrated against a new school program to teach their children about different LGBT lifestyles. Nearly 80% of the children were pulled out of the school by their parents and demonstrated outside of the school holding signs and chanting slogans demanding that the LGBT program be put to an end. The parents stated that LGBT values were not their values, were not Muslim values. The school ended the program. The children outnumber the parents, and when they grow into adulthood, their voices will be louder together than their parents currently are, setting a collision between Muslims and the LGBT community in the years to come. And what will be the response of people like Clooney? What will be the response of white people such as those pictured here, members of the LGBT community who march for the inclusion and acceptance of Muslims in Western countries? Because this is how they are dealt with currently in some Muslim countries. Tossed off of rooftops, then, dead or not from the fall, their bodies stoned. Clooney has called for a boycott of hotels owned by the Sultan of Brunei in response, and other celebrities have voiced their support. These hotels include Hotel Bel-Air, the Beverly Hills Hotel, and the Dorchester, to name a few. But the Sultan is worth over $20 billion. This boycott won't hurt him, but it will hurt the employees of the hotel, especially those who rely on tips and likely live paycheck to paycheck, unlike Mr. Clooney. It is these innocent people who will suffer from this boycott, not the Sultan, but it will sure make Mr. Clooney feel like he accomplished something. To take a utilitarian view of the situation, a number of people will likely be killed in Brunei because of Sharia. But currently, Brunei has a murder rate of 0.5. Multiple cities across America with a population similar to Brunei, such as St. Louis, New Orleans, Baltimore, and Detroit, have a murder rate of nearly or well over 100 times that of Brunei. Brunei is also the only country in the world with a public debt of 0% of its GDP. It also provides subsidies for food and housing and provides for all medical services. But perhaps most importantly, Brunei's foreign policy is to mutually respect others' territorial sovereignty, integrity, and independence, as well as non-interference in the internal affairs of other countries. Compare that to the interventionist policy of America, of our current wars under Trump, the record-setting number of drone strikes, and the innocents who died from them under Obama. All of the wars and conflicts started under Bush, Clinton, and Bush, and on and on and on. It's stunning the attention the tiny nation of Brunei has garnered implementing new Shariah laws, when in comparison, there are far greater and deadlier problems in our own nation. 2 to 4 people are murdered per year in Brunei. Baltimore had 2 homicides the first day of 2019. Which isn't to say that people like Clooney don't speak out about these problems. They do, and sometimes go even further to donate large sums of money. Such as in the case of Mark Zuckerberg donating $20 million to the Newark school system, which has had no noticeable effect in grades or any academic metrics. The cause of these people putting their face out there speaking to these problems is likely a symptom of another problem, their own narcissism, because actually solving many of the problems in America will require them to face the reality of their own morals and consequences thereof, such as the clash between LGBT and Muslims in Birmingham in England. Nothing that George Clooney is capable of doing is going to change the mind of a sultan of a very rich and peaceful, tiny country on the opposite side of the world of America. The mess of multiculturalism in America is invited by these people preaching tolerance, criticizing the natives of these nations while barring any such criticism of the growing minorities pushing multiculturalism.